Lynn stood in the bedroom doorway, the grocery tote slipping from her fingers and hitting the floor with a soft thud. The cherries she'd just bought, Chase's favorite, spilled everywhere, rolling like scattered drops of blood. On the bed, her husband Chase was bare-chested, pinning a naked stranger beneath him. The woman's back was to the door, her long hair tangled, releasing sounds that made Lynn's cheeks burn. The monogrammed linens beneath them were the ones Lynn had changed only last week, each corner embroidered with their initials. "Chase, faster!" the woman cooed, voice dripping honey, nothing like Lynn's gentle murmur. Chase froze for a second, maybe hearing the faint noise at the door, but he didn't turn. Instead he pulled the woman closer, voice reckless, almost triumphant. "Baby, don't stop." Lynn felt every drop of blood rush to her skull, then ice over in the same instant. She thought she would scream, charge in, tear them apart, but an odd calm took over. She even bent down, plucking the cherries from the rug and dropping them back into the tote. Only when the room finally quieted did Chase roll away, reach for the cigarette pack on the nightstand, and light up. Then he spotted Lynn in the doorway and the cigarette fell from his lips. Lynn? What are you doing home?" he stammered, no trace of shame, only annoyance at the interruption. The woman sat up, clutching the sheet, and glanced over her shoulder, eyes glittering with challenge. She looked young, makeup flawless, a alluring smirk playing on her mouth. Lynn stared at Chase, this man she had loved for 7 years, married for 3. She remembered the anniversary dinner he had cooked, the nights he'd stayed up nursing her through fever, the promise ring moment when he'd sworn, "I'll love you forever." "All lies. I came back for a few things," Lynn said, voice so flat it felt foreign to her own ears. "Obviously, I picked the wrong time." She turned, didn't spare them another glance, and walked out. As the door shut she heard Chase shout, "Lynn, let me explain." She never broke stride. Outside, she sat on a bench in Miramar, the night wind sharp against her skin, finally clearing her head. She didn't cry, she felt sick. Not because of the woman, but because of Chase, because of the marriage she'd believed unbreakable. She pulled out her phone and opened the private app she'd registered for months ago but never used. Now the moment had come. "Dig up everything on my husband, Chase," she said, tone glacial. 3 days later the file landed in her hands. When she spread the photos and documents across her desk, she understood what abyss truly meant. Chase's serial infidelity wasn't a momentary slip, it was a calculated, ongoing campaign. Pictures showed him checking into hotels, restaurants, cinemas with a rotating cast of women. Some looked like seasoned executives, some innocent as college freshmen. Each page listed date, location, room number, and appended chat screenshots. "Darling, he's nagging again, so lucky I have you. Babe, once my project bonus hits, that handbag is yours." Lynn the fool swallows any sweet talk, easiest mark ever. Reading the obscene lines, Lynn's stomach lurched. She remembered scrimping on lunches so he could have limited edition sneakers, taking 3 days off to learn his mother's braised pork recipe, keeping dinner warm whenever he worked late. She had been a puppet, strings in his fist. Worst of all, the file proved asset siphoning. Several supplementary credit cards in his name had funneled thousands to these women, while he told Lynn revenues were down and they needed to tighten their belts. Her fingers trembled over the papers. She didn't mourn the money, she mourned the years and the love she'd poured into a monster. She closed the folder, eyes hardening. No tears, no tantrums. She would make Chase pay, strip him of reputation, of wealth, of everything. Let him learn that Quinn wasn't someone to trifle with. When Lynn stepped back into the apartment, Chase was waiting on the sofa, wearing the perfect mask of remorse. "Lynn, where have you been? I've looked everywhere for 3 days." He reached for her hand. She sidestepped, smile polite. "Last-minute business trip. Phone died, sorry I couldn't call." Chase blinked, thrown by her calm. "Oh, well, good. About the other night, don't take it to heart. She's a client, I understand." Lynn cut him off, voice soft. "Men have pressures. As long as you still care about this family, I won't hold it against you." Chase's eyes widened, he'd braced for a storm, not this docile forgiveness. "You're really not angry? What good would anger do?" Lynn sighed, the picture of a resigned, loving wife. "We're married. I just want you back on the right track. Treat me well from now on, and I'll be content. Chase exhaled, grinning in relief. Same gullible woman, he thought. A few compliments and everything blows over. Lynn, you're so good. He hugged her, thinking, this idiot really is easy to fool. Lynn let him hold her, a cold smile curving her lips. Silently she said, Chase, your game has only just begun. The days that followed saw Lynn transform into the perfect wife. She rose early to make Chase breakfast, set out warm towels and water at night, fussed over him with endless concern. She even volunteered to manage his finances so he could concentrate on work. Chase couldn't believe his luck. He'd been wondering how to keep siphoning assets. He handed her the unimportant ledgers while he kept carousing on the side. Ellis managed those books while quietly gathering evidence. She backed up every chat screenshot, duplicated every photo on his phone, even planted a GPS tracker in his car. She was a cool hunter, watching her prey from the shadows, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. One Friday night Chase said he had a company dinner and wouldn't be home until late. Lynn knew he was off to meet the new college he'd just picked up. She didn't expose him, only smiled and said, Rowan, don't drink too much. She went alone to a velvet club downtown. She needed air, and she needed to plan her next move. The bar was dim, the music low. Lynn sat at the counter knocking back single malt whiskey. She rarely drank, but tonight she wanted to get drunk. Alone, a deep voice asked beside her. Emery, she turned and saw a man on the neighboring stool. Tailored dark suit, chiseled features, eyes sharp enough to cut. The aura around him was impossible to ignore. What's it to you? She snapped, liquor loosening her tongue. The man lifted a brow, unoffended, and signaled the bartender a virgin mojito for her, sobers the head. I don't need it, Riley retorted. Your eyes say otherwise. He studied her as if he could see straight through her. You hate someone, don't you? Lynn's heart lurched. She'd masked it perfectly, how could this stranger tell? You're talking nonsense, she forced out. Hate can't hide, he murmured, sipping his own drink. Not when you're drunk. Lynn fell silent. She hated Chase's hypocrisy, hated her own stupidity. I'm Taylor, he said suddenly. Lynn, she answered before thinking, then wished she hadn't. Taylor seemed to read her regret, a playful smile tugging at his mouth. Relax, I won't tell. I just find you interesting. They talked for hours. He never asked who she hated, only kept her company, listened to her sporadic complaints. He spoke little, but every sentence struck home. Dangerous, Lynn thought, yet something about him steadied her. When the bar closed at last, Taylor walked her to the door. I'll drive you home, he offered. No need, Riley said. I'll grab a cab. He didn't press, simply handed her a card, a name and a number. If you ever need help, call. Lynn watched his silhouette dissolve into the night, an odd ache blooming inside. She didn't go home, she headed for the apartment she'd secretly rented, her escape hatch. The city quieted, but Lynn couldn't sleep. Standing at the floor-to-ceiling window, she swirled the virgin mojito Taylor had ordered, mint cool on her tongue yet unable to quell the heat and emptiness surging inside her. Chase's betrayal was a blunt blade slowly hacking at her pride. Taylor's arrival was lightning, illuminating the craving she'd buried to be understood, to be claimed, to be dragged out of this endless dark. Her phone vibrated on the table. Taylor, home safe? Simple words, yet they snapped her last thread of restraint. She typed back no. The call came instantly. Where? His voice was low, urgent. She gave the address of the new apartment. She didn't know what she hoped for, or knew too well. She wanted to wreck something, and she wanted to possess something. 20 minutes later, the doorbell rang. Casey opened the door. Taylor filled the frame, fresh from some function, a faint trace of tobacco and whiskey clinging to him, gaze crystal clear and burning. You. She began, but he stepped inside and slammed the door shut. Lynn, he rasped, do you realize you're playing with fire? Then why did you come? She lifted her chin, challenge and a fragility she didn't see flashing in her eyes. He answered with action, backing her against the door. Cedar and power enveloped her. There was nowhere to run. I'm here, he whispered, fingers brushing her cheek, their roughness sending a shiver through her. Then his mouth crashed onto hers, no tenderness, only possession. The kiss was fierce, demanding. He parted her lips and claimed every sweetness inside. Lynn's mind blanked even as her body responded. She clutched his shirt, nails scoring his skin. The kiss felt as if it were venting every grievance, rage, refusal to accept, and longing she had ever stored inside her. Taylor seemed to sense the storm, because his pace slowed. The tip of his tongue brushed her lower lip, soothing, guiding. Lynn's breath turned ragged, her body softening until she sagged against the solid wall of his chest. She could feel his powerful heartbeat, its cadence syncing with her own. "Taylor," she murmured between his teeth, half pleading, half seductive. "I'm here," he answered, voice low. He scooped her up and strode toward the master bedroom. Laying her on the yielding mattress, Taylor looked down at her. Moonlight filtered through the curtains, tracing the curves of her body. Her eyes were misted, her cheeks flushed, ripe fruit waiting to be picked. "Look at me, Lynn." Taylor's voice was hoarse with barely leashed desire. She opened her eyes and met his bottomless gaze. The fire blazing there frightened her yet mesmerized her. "You're mine." He groaned the words and claimed her completely. In that instant Lynn forgot every betrayal, every worry. She was no longer the foolish woman Chase had played, she was the treasure gleaming in Taylor's eyes, the focus of his hunger. All night they clung together like two ships hunting shelter in a tempest. Each of Taylor's thrusts carried power and possession. Lynn answered with everything she had, proving she was still alive, still worthy of love. Outside, the moon faded. Dawn seeped through the curtains until only the mingled sounds of breathing and heartbeats remained. Exhausted, Lynn rested against Taylor's chest, his arm locked around her as if she might vanish. She closed her eyes. A single tear slipped free, not of sorrow but of release and fulfillment. That night she had severed the past and stepped into a future she could not predict. Morning light, sharp as a scalpel, sliced through the gap in the curtains and stabbed Lynn's eyelids. She woke with a frown, hangover headache still pulsing, but what registered first was the ache between her thighs and the heavy weight across her waist. Taylor's arm was an iron band, his even breaths skimmed the nape of her neck, raising shivers. Lynn didn't move. Lying rigid on her side, she listened to the steady drum of his heart while memories of the night, his possessive growl, her shattered moan, flooded back. It had been more than sex, it had been a life-and-death struggle of body and soul. She squeezed her eyes shut, Chase's false smile overlaying Taylor's burning gaze. She had come to this city for revenge, not to tumble into another abyss. Careful as a cat slipping a trap, she tried to ease his arm away. "Where do you think you're going?" The rough, sleepy voice cracked through the quiet. Taylor's eyes stayed shut, yet his arm tightened, pulling her flush to his scorching chest. The sheer captivity of it skipped her heart. "It's morning," she said, voice husky, laced with the panic she refused to show. "I should go. You're my exclusive now, Lynn." Taylor's eyes opened at last. He rolled, pinning her beneath him. Dawn sculpted the ruthless angles of his face, and his dark irises churned with leftover need and calculating curiosity. "That wasn't the line you fed me last night." He cradled her face as though verifying ownership. "Last night was a transaction," Lynn answered, forcing calm into her stare. "You bailed me out. I gave you what you wanted. We're even, Jordan." Taylor stilled. The warmth in his gaze seemed to drop degree by degree. The fingertip resting over her heart pressed harder, punitive. "Even?" He chuckled, cold and dangerous. "You think Taylor needs to bargain for a woman? Then what was it?" Lynn angled her chin, baring the slim column of her throat, proud, fragile. "We were both drunk. Adults. No one owes anyone." She was betting on his pride, praying he wouldn't chase a woman who only wanted a one-night ticket. Taylor studied her so long she feared he could read the bluff. Finally he laughed icy, menacing, and swooped down to her ear. "Fair deal." The words had barely landed when he kissed her again, but tenderness had fled. This kiss plundered, punished, a savage bid to tear through her composure and leave her exposed. Lynn's head tipped back under the assault, her nails raked his shoulders as she struggled, wrists easily captured and pinned above her head. "If this is only a transaction," Taylor murmured, releasing her lips and drifting down the line of her jaw to nip the delicate lobe of her ear. The light sting sent a shiver racing through her. then the deal isn't finished. Whether my money was well spent is for me to decide. His voice carried lethal seduction and absolute authority. Taylor. Lynn was equal parts mortified and furious, scarlet flooding her cheeks while fire ignited in her eyes. Sure. He pressed one forefinger to her mouth. No talking. Your body is more honest than your words. He gave her no further chance to protest. Fiery kisses rained down, rekindling every ember left smoldering from the night before. Her struggles felt feeble against that raw strength. The barricade of reason collapsed beneath the assault of sensation. This time there was no cautious probing, no tangled hesitation, only pure, almost violent demand and answer. Teetering on the brink of collapse, Lynn was startled by a crystal-clear realization. She had just gambled everything and lost. When the storm finally stilled, Taylor didn't spring from the bed and vanish as she'd expected. He lay on his side, idly twisting a strand of her hair that had spilled across the pillow, his gaze unreadable. Lynn kept her back to him, cocooned in the sheet, her body still quivering. Words failed her. Worse, she had no idea how to face the situation she'd created. Lynn. His sudden address was low, resonant. Her reply was muffled. You think this will push me away? He paused his toying with her hair, gave the slightest tug, and forced her to roll over and meet his stare, keen as a hawk's, able to pierce every disguise. You think all I wanted last night was your body? Lynn's heart lurched as her gaze locked with his. I want you, he stated, each word deliberate. The moment you looked at me from that shadowed corner of the bar, you became mine. Her pupils contracted. She'd believed her mask was perfect, yet he had seen through it all. I don't know what you mean. Instinct urged her to deny, to retreat. Don't lie to me or yourself. Dylan smoothed the furrow between her brows with a featherlight touch. You keep secrets, you crave revenge, you plan to use me. None of that matters, Lynn. Be happy to wield me as your blade, but don't imagine you can shove me out of your world. He paused, eyes darkening to something dangerous. Because starting last night, you belong to me. Running? Not an option. Lynn stared, her heart battered by a bittersweet blow that stung her eyes with unshed tears. She had thought she was setting the board. Instead, she had stepped straight into someone else's trap. Taylor. She whispered, lost and shaken. He answered only with a long, searching look, then rose. Shirt in hand, he dressed with his back to her, every movement fluid, precise. Watching the straight set of his shoulders, Lynn felt an ache she couldn't name. Yet he didn't walk out. Coming to the bedside, he drew a small velvet box from his pocket and laid it on her pillow. What is it? She asked, bewildered. You dropped it last night. He faced her, a ghost of a smile tugging at his mouth. Seems our transaction is far from over. He shrugged into his coat, strode to the door, and paused on the threshold for one last unreadable glance. When you're ready, come find me. The latch clicked shut, silence swallowed the room. Lynn opened the box and her stomach dropped. Nestled inside was the miniature GPS tracker she'd planted on Chase. He knew. He knew everything. She had meant to use him for vengeance, only to discover she was the one caught in the crosshairs. This game called revenge was sliding toward an outcome she could no longer steer. Lynn's plan entered its final phase. She learned Chase was closing a huge deal, a success that would earn him a 7-figure bonus. She also possessed exhaustive proof of his serial infidelity, photos, chat screenshots, and bank documents chronicling his asset siphoning. She would deliver the fatal blow at his victory gala. The night of the celebration, Lynn arrived in a scarlet gown, hair swept up, makeup flawless, stunning enough to stop conversations. Chase's eyes bulged, convinced she had come to shine reflected glory on him. He swelled with pride. Across the hall he basked in toasts, crowing loud enough for everyone to hear that his triumph owed everything to his brilliant better half. Lynn smiled by his side, the perfect ornament. When the champagne was flowing and the applause peaked, she lifted a microphone and tapped it. May I have a moment? Conversations died, every gaze pivoted to her. Chase shifted uneasily. Lynn, what are you doing? Ignoring him, she beamed at the crowd. First, congratulations to Chase on this spectacular win. But before we toast, let's watch a short clip. She connected her phone to the ballroom's projector. On screen flashed intimate footage of Chase with assorted women, pages of WhatsApp trysts, and bank transfers funneling money offshore. Gasps rippled through the audience. Chase's complexion drained to chalk. He lunged for the phone. "Have you lost your mind? Stop this." Lynn sidestepped, frigid calm in her stare. "Did you honestly believe I knew nothing, Chase? That I was just another fool?" Image after image, recording after recording, each reveal slashed fresh wounds in his public facade while the crowd watched, transfixed. "You're addicted to betrayal, you cheated your way through our marriage, and you've been siphoning off our assets. You didn't just fail me, you failed every friend and partner who ever trusted you." Chase sat slumped on the floor, his face the color of cold ash. He knew it was over. Lynn stared down at him, not a flicker of pity in her eyes. "We're getting divorced. And I'm going to file suit for half of every dollar we earned together and for every sleepless night you cost me." She turned to leave. A tall frame blocked the doorway. "Taylor, what was he doing here?" Taylor looked at Lynn, admiration shining in his dark eyes. "Well played." Lynn froze. "I'm stepping in," Taylor said. "I've got harder evidence, enough to bury him so deep he'll never claw out." Taylor, she learned in that moment, was the CEO of Chase's fiercest rival. He'd had Chase in his crosshairs for months, he just hadn't expected Lynn to fire the first shot. Lynn's chest warmed. She wasn't alone anymore. The divorce war dragged through months of filings and hearings, but with Taylor's legal team feeding her ammunition, Lynn took every battle. In the end, Chase walked away penniless. The judge stripped him of every hidden account. A separate criminal probe for securities fraud snapped at his heels, and the tabloids feasted on his public disgrace. College and the string of other women he'd strung along showed up next, each demanding compensation for wasted youth. Chase barricaded himself in a rented room, drowning in lawyer letters, his name a punchline. Lynn moved out of the house whose walls knew too many lies and into a bright downtown loft. Her settlement hit her account on a crystal blue morning, and she started sketching plans for a life that belonged only to her. Taylor, however, turned out to be stickier than packing tape. He materialized beside her at flower markets, sent her favorite Colombian coffee without warning, and appeared on her doorstep the night her first big corporate pitch crashed, carrying Thai takeout and a flash drive of backup designs. Lynn knew what he wanted, she just wasn't sure she could give it. Fresh scars from the divorce still burned, and Taylor's brilliance felt blinding. She feared she'd disappear in his shadow. One rainy Thursday she finally said it. "Taylor, we're wrong for each other." Taylor studied her, raindrops sliding down his coat. "Wrong how? Because I don't flinch when I want something? Or because you're still hearing Chase's footsteps behind you?" "Neither, Avery. I just can't survive another wound. I won't be the one who gives it." His voice dropped, steady as bedrock. "Look at me, Lynn. I'm not Chase. I crave your brain, your backbone, your laugh when you think no one's listening. You're not an accessory, you're the whole damn gallery." He closed her hand inside his, heat chasing away the chill. "Let me in. One day at a time." Moisture blurred her vision. She remembered the midnight loneliness of revenge, the way he'd quietly slid evidence across a conference table and tipped his head, "Use this." She didn't recoil from his touch now. "Give me a minute," she whispered. Taylor smiled, winter breaking into thaw. "I'll wait." Time did what time does, stitched, softened, strengthened. Lynn launched Bloom, a pocket-sized floral studio with white brick walls and the scent of eucalyptus riding the air. She loved watching bruised roses revive under her shears, loved pairing colors until they sang. Taylor came by so often the staff thought he was silent security. Some afternoons he bought a single stem, others he simply sat on a metal stool, laptop open, answering emails while she wrapped bouquets. Bit by bit her armor unclipped. She learned that the feared titan of Vance Holdings could spend an hour fixing her broken refrigerated case, that he listened to her ideas with the same intensity he brought to hostile takeovers, that he stepped back when she needed space and stepped up when she didn't. On a sun-drenched April noon Taylor walked in empty-handed. Instead of blooms, he offered a slim velvet box. "Open it." Casey. Resting on black silk lay a ring, clean lines, a single oval diamond flanked by two tiny sapphires. "It's not a proposal," he said quickly. "It's a promise ring." I promise to guard your heart, honor your choices, and love you today, tomorrow, however long it takes for you to believe it. Lynn's throat tightened as she slipped the ring on. The metal fit like it had waited for her all along. Taylor, she said, tears sparkling like the stone, thank you. He drew her into the sunshine pooling across the workshop floor, arms sealing the vow without another word. Outside, Riverdale shimmered, and for the first time Lynn felt the city rooting for her. Revenge was a closed chapter, the rest of the book lay blank, hers to fill. She was Lynn, florist, strategist, survivor, loved exactly as she was, and ready to write a story no one else could claim. Thanks for listening. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate this tale? If you enjoyed it, hit like and share with friends. We can't wait to read your comments, so don't forget to subscribe for more stories. See you next time.